welcome to Jumble Lane. Today I'm going to show you how I made the fluorescent light that fits in the Bachmann Diesel refilling point. To start with, we have two posts on the base and you've got a roof. You've got other parts as well, and there are two fluorescent lights which have been built into the model, which have got to be removed, and for that I used a Dremel disc. I've got a very fine thin disc, so it cut away quite easily. Once those were removed, I've measured the space between there and the posts, and the space between the base and the roof. And what I intend to do is this very thin plastic card tubing is, you can only see against the yellow, but there it is. I'm going to fit 4 LEDs in here, and I'm going to make 4 very small holes, place LEDs in it with the wires going down inside the tube, and I've got a mitered cut at the end of the tube, because where you've got the joint between the part going along the roof and the part going down the side, that will be a mitered joint, and the cables will go there and will be hidden, and then the cables will go through the base. The LEDs that I shall be using are these very small LEDs. They're very cheap, and they was off eBay, and they come in a little packet like this, which there are 50 of them, and they're probably, I think, around about £8 to £9, and that includes delivery. So the part at the top, which is where the lights will be housed, will have 4 little notches cut into them, and the LEDs will sit in the little holes, the notch holes, and the cables will just feed through the tube and they'll be hidden away. And then that'll be quite nice and neat. When I've finished the top part, I've got some wider tube which will then sit over the top and diffuse the lights, making it look more like a fluorescent light. Right, I've marked out the top piece where I want the notches into 4 equal or near enough equal positions, and what I'm going to use is a small drawing file, boarding file, just to make the notches. I find that this is probably a better way of doing it, because if you use a blade to cut the hole, you're forcing against the blade, and you're actually when you get through and you go through the wall of the tube, you end up going a bit too far, probably cutting it in half. Now I've got through there just to where it, I don't know if you'll be able to see, just there. I'll just be able to get through. And then what I'll also use is a blade just to open up the hole enough for the cable to go through. Now you've got to bear in mind at this end where the cables start to go through, you've only got 2 wires, and then at this hole you've got 4 wires passing, 6 wires passing, and you've got all 8 wires passing through. and it does get a bit full by then, but it is possible. And what I'll do now is I'll just carry on putting the other holes. Right, now we've got 4 notches in there. I don't know if you can see that. 4 notches. Let's hope we can get the LEDs wired through. Right, we've got to the point now where we've got 3 LEDs fitted, and now we're just going to fit the last LED into here. This really gets a bit more difficult because the tube is getting a bit full by now, but the thing is, you haven't got to push it as far down the tube once it's in there. So it's not the easiest of things, but it is possible. As these wires are very, very thin. Pushing one at a time is probably easier. That's the red. Just leaving the blue. Forgive my fingers from being in the way. And there are all 4 LEDs. I don't know if you can, if you'll focus on that, you can see that very well. But that's all 4 LEDs now situated inside there. It is a quite tight fit, and if you was just leaving it like this, then you probably wouldn't need to, you'd have to glue them in. But because what we're going to do in this situation, we're going to cover them over with a wider tube to diffuse these lights and make them more look like a fluorescent rather than separate lights. You won't need to glue them in. So our next job is to feed all these wires down inside, once we've smoothed them all out, down inside the vertical part of the that goes down by the post. A bit difficult without my hands being in the way. Let's see if I can just zoom out. Okay. Just this last couple of millimetres to feed the cables in. And basically there we have it. That forms the basis of the pipe work to feed the cables through. Now, how I've done this is that because the LEDs will work around the 3 volt mark, we're going to feed them with a 12 volt supply. If we wire all 4 LEDs into series, then we won't need any resistors at all. So what I intend doing is keeping these cables, these wires straight, and that will identify each pair of cables for each LED. The longer pair of cables there, if I just keep them separate from everyone else, like that, just put a quick twist in there to keep them together, and then go to another pair, which are those 2, and do the same with those, and then identify the longest of those, which are those 2. And then ending up with the remaining 2 wires, and that is the that is messenger. Keep on making noises, by the way. So there we have the 4 LEDs and their appropriate cables. So what I normally do at this stage, I normally get some more wire, which will be probably the feeder wires that go down to the power supply or the switch that controls them, and then I take off, say, the red to the positive feed, and then I take the blue to the red of the next pair, and then I take the blue of that second pair to the red of the third pair, and then the blue of the third pair to the red of the fourth pair, and then the other feed, the negative feed, will go on to the blue of the fourth pair. So then all these LEDs will then be in series. What I will do just at the moment is very crudely, and this will be crudely, twist them together, just temporary, and put a test on them, because the last thing I want to do is get to the point where I've put it all together and find out if I've either got a duff LED or a break in the wire. So at this point we can test and see how we're getting on. And there we have all our connections in series, and all we'll have to do is pull up temporary power supply, making sure none of the cables are shorting, and there we have it. All 4 LEDs nicely lit. And then if I sort out some tube, I'll go and get some tube, some thicker tube, and then put it over the top just to show you how that looks. Now, once all these have been straightened out, connected and soldered properly, I use a thin piece of heat shrink to go over all the joints, and if you step the joints so they will not touch each other, you just need the one length of heat shrink to shrink over the whole lot, and that will be okay. Now, this part was fitted to the diesel pump a long time before. I'd got some wider tube, and this is the tube. I got this for a different purpose, but I thought it's ideal for this because it keeps it away from the it's not as if it's a very tight fit, and these LEDs are tight to here, so the light does bounce around inside a bit more by leaving a space. But because this was already glued into place, what I did, I cut a slot along the top about 2mm wide, and then I clipped this over the top of that. In this case, what I shall do here, I shall put some styrene cement along the top, slide this on, and then drop it down on the top like that, so it fixes to it and leaving a gap at the bottom. And I don't know if you can see down inside the end of that, I doubt it very much. You'll see that the inner tube is at the top, and this is just resting on it, and that's glued quite quickly. So if we connect these wires back up, our test power supply, making sure we've got no shorts. Yeah, you can still see the LEDs, but they are somewhat diffused, and does give quite a nice effect. And you can see that's the effect that we're after, a nice bit of lighting for the diesel pump.